afternoon. Hold on. Okay. Shout out to WFAA. Let's get it.
Already taking the stand in this case. And remember, there is no audio, there's no video, no live stream of this trial. So we are relying right now on our team of journalists and legal experts inside of the courtroom to keep us updated throughout all of this. So I want to walk you through what this morning has been like so far. It started with opening statements after a number of pretrial motions, and each, the defense and the prosecution, got about 20 minutes for those opening statements. It started with the prosecution, who called this a, quote, unjustified, provoked murder, and told jurors Anthony plunged a knife into Austin Metcalf's heart and ran away. Now, the state said surveillance video from the track meet will be important, telling jurors that the video tells the story. Prosecutors said Anthony went to Memorial High School's team tent during the rain, was told to leave, then taunted and provoked Metcalf before stabbing him. So then next, we heard from the defense. They told jurors that there's been a lot of noise around this case, a lot of false information. They described Anthony as a son, a brother, a 3.7 GPA student athlete. The defense said Anthony went under the memorial tent to get out of the rain, knew people that were under there, and that things were initially calm. Now, Mike Howard, Karmelo's defense attorney, said the video will show some things, but it won't show everything. And the defense said Anthony told Metcalf, quote, as long as you don't touch me, we're cool, and argued that Metcalf made the first physical contact. Now, Howard said Anthony acted in fear and chaos. We also learned that Anthony suffers from epilepsy. So then the first witness was called to the stand. That's Mark Porter, a forensic video analyst from Tarrant County. Inside the courtroom right now, both families are seated. They're on opposite sides. We also got our first look at the jury. The panel appears to include at least 9 women, several people of color, including a woman that was wearing a hijab. And then remember, there were questions about demographics of this jury panel yesterday. So what's happening next? Court is going to go on until lunchtime. They'll take a break, and then we'll continue until 6 o'clock this evening. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you for the insight and the update, Janelle. From start to finish, we are bringing you complete coverage of what's happening inside the courtroom. Make sure to watch after the trial on WFAA+. Our team is breaking down the latest developments of each day in court. That's at 8 p.m. tonight. New at midday, Dallas City leaders plead with the Mavs to stay in downtown. That comment coming in a press conference about 2 hours ago. Council members stressed that the Mavs economically benefit the entire city, not just downtown. Earlier this week, both the Mavs and Dallas Stars announced plans to move out of the urban core.
Right now, Dallas is evolving and we're at a decision point. Do we want to continue resisting the change and the evolution that's happening? Meanwhile, cities like Plano and all of these other suburban towns are killing us.
Alright, how are you, Red Lipstick? Good afternoon, good afternoon. Okay. Where do I want to go to? Let's go to an update about this case from Queen Sheba. Here we go.
All right, y'all, we are live in front of the Collin County Courthouse, day 3 of the Karmelo Anthony trial. Right now, we are on a 45-minute recess. I got in the courtroom. I am in the courtroom on the second row. I can see the family. I can see the defense. I can see the government. I can see everything. I am going to go live a little bit later tonight, so make sure you tune in into my YouTube. But right now, let me give you some facts of the case, okay? Fact number 1, this is a first-degree murder case. Fact number 2, Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf had no previous relationship. So I know there's rumors on social media that maybe the twins were bullying Karmelo. According to the opening statements on the behalf of the government, they had no previous encounters. They didn't know each other. Fact number 3, Centennial High School, the day of the fatal event, they did not have a tent. Centennial High School did not have a tent. Memorial had a tent, but not Centennial High School. Fact number 4, Karmelo Anthony, according to the defense, knew someone under the tent and went under the tent to talk to his friend.
Okay.
Fact number 5, Austin Metcalf
Why would Austin approach Karmelo? That morning of the track meet, Austin Metcalf received a text from his coach asking him to step up and be a leader for the team and the track event. So now we got that fact out of the way. So yes, Austin received a text from his coach to step up as a leader on the team. Fact number 5. Hunter and Austin Metcalf approached Karmelo Anthony instead over him, according to the defense.
So it wasn't one brother that was doing intimidation tactics. It was both brothers. But you know something? I figured that both of the twins were trying to poke their chests out at Carmelo. I figured that's what it was. And this right here just proved me right. Keep going, Queen Sheba.
Fact number 5. There
Keep
was
going.
100-pound difference between Karmelo Anthony. Fact number 6. There was a.
Yep. Now the twins, if I remember correctly, they're both 6'1" and 230. If I remember correctly.
100-pound difference between Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. Karmelo weighed 130 pounds. It is believed, according to the defense, and he gave out the Austin weighed 225, 230. Okay, so there was a 100-pound difference. Those are the facts of the.
6'1", 230. Most likely, he was a linebacker. With that height, that weight, linebacker.
Case. I will see you a little bit later for a deep dive. All right, y'all, we are live in front of the cop.
Give me 1 second. This is Nick at Night from 2 hours ago.
I ain't never seen someone driving a 10-year-old car paying $150 a month for insurance. Like, I think that's outrageous. A friend of mine told me.
From Collins County Courthouse. I am here covering the Karmelo Anthony trial, and I was inside the courtroom when we just watched the surveillance footage of the incident take place. I was able to see Karmelo Anthony enter into the stadium. It showed the victim and his brother enter into the stadium. It showed the tents that they were under and so much more. They also did opening statements before we started to see any type of footage or anything like that. Opening statements was 20 minutes for each side. The defense took 20 minutes. The prosecution took 20 minutes. And when they gave their opening statements, there was a stark contrast on both sides. So first and foremost, the defense went up and the prosecution went up first, and his co-counsel did the opening statements where he painted Karmelo Anthony as a senseless murderer. You know, he said that Karmelo Anthony provoked the victim into putting his hands on him. So he's saying that, you know, the victim in a case, he provoked him because he didn't leave when they told him to. So basically, they told him to leave, and he didn't leave, and he told them that they better not touch him or whatever, or watch what happens if you touch me. That's provoking them to put their hands on him. So then once they put the hands on him, then he, you know, used his weapon. He grabbed in his bag, used his weapon, and the whole incident happened in a matter of 4 minutes. So the victim and his brother entered into the tent 2 minutes prior to Karmelo Anthony entering in the tent. The defense said that he didn't enter the tent because he wasn't supposed to be there, as far as like the way that they're trying to shape it, but he entered into the tent because he recognized one of his friends. He went to say hello to one of his friends, and he went to go sit down. As soon as he went to go sit down, it is being alleged that the twins came up to him and told him, "You gotta go, you gotta get up out of here." And he told them, no, he's not leaving, he's not getting up out of there at all. Now, that's what's happening on the inside of the courtroom. You guys know I took a lot of notes. I'm gonna be giving you guys a very detailed breakdown. I tried to jot down as much as I can as far as what the prosecution and defense are saying and alleging. We're going to give the facts. Now, outside, there is protest on both sides happening right now. There are people here that are
I'm
supporting
only here to
Karmelo
give the
Anthony,
facts.
and then there are people who don't appear to be a part of Austin's family, but rather serving a white supremacist agenda and trying to basically put fear in black people. So you see them kind of like trying to black, like, looking all of us up and down, mad dogging us, trying to make their presence known. One guy's walking around with a Confederate.
Well, Nick, Nick at night, if you ever see this, darling, from what I heard, that's Texas. Let's continue.
Flag, and it's like intimidation tactics that's trying to happen. I'm gonna pan the camera so you guys can kind of see what's going on. So, I don't have much time before it's time to go back in, but I just kind of want y'all to see the atmosphere that's going on outside and all the people. You said I'm breaking up? So he's been walking around with his flag all around. Right, and then this guy right here, he was with the girl Sarah that was like trying to talk a lot of mess.
Yeah, I heard about that Jake Lane. I think I remember him from the Minnesota and how they basically had to track him out of Minnesota so he wouldn't basically quote unquote get his ass whooped.
So there's one female that's trying to like rage bait and make this a racial thing. That guy right there is with her. He was mad dogging me too, trying to look me up and down. But I'm gonna get back over to the court side. Here is the officers across the street. All of the sheriffs have been nice, actually. Like, they have been completely nice. This is what it looks like across the street. And then this is what it looks like on this side. Over here. And then there's news media all around. So you said watch my back. Obvious, clearly. Yeah, these people right here, y'all. They all got on body cam footage.
Yeah, be careful, Nick.
Yeah, I'm being careful. So I'm walking back down away from the crowd.
Got an Android phone? Well, great news. You now have another camera.
So I'm walking back down away from the crowd. But yeah, that's the atmosphere that's going on down here. There's a lot of news media like across. So as you can see, this is the news media
right here. And it's pretty quiet towards the steps. Most of the protest and stuff is going on at the end. I don't know if y'all can see my fit, but fit check. I'm gonna have to have somebody hold it so y'all can see. Y'all can see. But they showed the surveillance. Oh, so what I wanted to say about the surveillance, and again, we're going to go into this a lot more in depth later because they already have the first witness on the stand. They already, they're admitting evidence and everything like that. The tents, like when people were describing the tents, I'm thinking like a sheltered, enclosed tent. They were not under like a tent. They were under a canopy. So if you guys know, like whenever, like say you go to a barbecue or you put up a canopy is open. So basically what was happening was there was a lot of rain. You saw in the video, you saw people in ponchos. You saw people with umbrellas. You saw kids that were like to the right of the tent. There was another tent to the left, and these tents are canopies. So a lot of people, like the prosecution basically said like, oh, their tents are, where they keep their belongings so that people don't steal. There's literally no way for a person to steal because the tent was full of people. There was kids all around. There was kids to the left, to the right, walking around. Like, who's gonna steal when all of these eyes? It wasn't that type of setup at all. And they were only under the tent for 4 minutes total from introduction to seeing each other to the knife wound. Now, what the defense wanted to basically point out is this isn't something where he stabbed them multiple times. He didn't go and stab other people. He didn't try to, do that. He defended himself and then he ran. So when he ran like out of the bleachers, and then you see him in the surveillance. He's like jumping down, running down the bleachers. And then as he runs down the bleachers, he runs to go run out. So when he runs out, like trying to run out of the field, there was kids that were chasing him from behind, and he ended up going up to one of the coaches. Now, as he's running out, there was a group of, it looked like black kids that were coming in for the track meet. They all had on like what looked like uniforms. Karmelo Anthony, he had on a light gray hoodie and some blue sweats. So he walks out of the bleachers, and then when he walks out of the bleachers, he's looking around. He goes back like, I don't know if he was, waiting on somebody. And then once he reemerges again, he goes past one tent. Now, one tent / canopy. He walks past, and you can see it's packed, jam-packed with kids. They tried to make it seem like, oh, he didn't go to the first tent. He passed up a whole tent and went to the other one. The tent, when you look at it, or the canopy, it's full. Like, it's a bunch of kids huddled under trying not to get wet. He goes to the other tent that is more open. Like, it's like less people congregated, but it's a lot of them underneath that tent. And you see kids, we ain't
gonna
do that. You see kids walking out with their ponchos.
over here,
you see them walking past
I don't know if you're
umbrellas.
black or white,
you
but
see them with their hoodies
we ain't about to do
and
that.
It's raining. You can see the rain coming down from the camera. So the videos that we're watching is surveillance from the school, and you can see the rain coming down from the surveillance as it's all happening. So they got a forensic analysis to come in, and basically what his job is to do is to look at the video, identify the suspect, which would be Karmelo Anthony, and the victim, which would be the brothers. And so he was supposed to like walk through, okay, when did Austin and his brother walk through? When did Karmelo walk through? And based on the video, they wanted to know like what was the resolution of the video. The video was a 4K video. It was a high resolution video.
Okay.
But what they explained to the jurors is that you can only get 4K video to come through a 4K TV. So the TVs in the courtroom are not 4K, but they said that they're going to bring a specialized 4K video, TV, so that they can watch the video in 4K.
Right.
And so that they can see it better. So and another thing that the defense wanted to note was every single team had a tent except for Karmelo Anthony's school. So it was several schools there for the track meet, and all of the other schools had their canopy tents.
Why did they not have
school
one?
That did not have a tent was Karmelo Anthony's school.
Why did they not have one?
So it's not like his school had their tent and he went to the other people's tent. They didn't have a tent at all. He said the only thing that they had was a tarp. Okay? And so so he said, for whatever reason, he doesn't know why they didn't have a tent, but their school did not have a tent. Centennial High School did not have a tent. And so when he's walking around, he was waiting around, and he was there as a I think he's in varsity, and the track meet was for junior varsity, but he went to help out with the school.
Okay.
And so the defense also wanted to note that all of the individuals that are going to testify are kids that went to that school, and he wanted to point out that all of them are friends of the victim. He said, once you're listening to testimony, you have to bear in mind that these are all friends, and they are all going to the same school. The only person under the tent that did not go to that school was Karmelo Anthony, and he says the only reason why he went there is because he went to talk to a guy who he thought was his friend. Okay, that was the key words that his defense said. They said he went to talk to a guy who he thought was his friend. So it's going to be interesting to hear from all of these witnesses. They're all going to be teenagers who are going to be testifying. They have, like I said, the video analyst who does video analyst for prosecution, district attorneys, that type of thing. He was able to enhance the video so that they can see an enhanced version. So right now, what we've watched so far was the raw footage, and once we go back in, they're going to show the enhanced footage. So in the enhanced footage that they plan to show, they have like a spotlight, and they like follow him with a spotlight and stuff like that. So we're going to see like a more enhanced version coming up. But I'm going to keep you guys updated on what's going on, and I'm going to take as much notes as possible, and I'm going to stay on this thing, okay? We are going to be safe. My unc is making sure that I'm safe. I got other family that's in the cut making sure that I am safe, okay? They made sure to not, be seen talking to me or whatever, like staying in the cut, making sure I'm safe. My mom did not play no game. She put in a call because, I don't know if y'all know, but half of my family is from Texas. My grandfather and everything is from Texas. My mom's dad's side of the family. My mom put in a call, made sure that her baby was safe because, I told her what was going on, like with the climate around it. So trust and believe, I'm safe. Also, this is a state where you can, if you got that fire, you can bring that fire with you. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Anyways,
talk about
that, it is very hot outside. Okay, it's hot outside, but this is the courthouse. All right, this is the courthouse. This is what's going on, and I'm gonna keep you guys updated. I wish there was somebody here that could show y'all my outfit, but it is what it is. My uncle ran inside real quick, so. Anyways. Once you go inside, there's no phones, no nothing, so you can't even communicate like that. So let me go. Let me go back inside, and I'm going to talk to y'all.
Okay, we're gonna go to AV to the 7th power. Let's go.
Whether you're big or slim, enjoy perfect fit at first sit with Synchroflex backrest. It's like the chair, it's tailor-made for you. The armrests, lumbar support, chair back, and headrest all follow your motion.
We back. How are y'all doing? It has been quite a bit of time. Oh my God. We haven't streamed in like, what, 2 weeks? It's June 4th. Wow. How are y'all? It has been a minute. Let me see who we have in the building so far. We have quite a bit to catch up on today, dear viewer. But shout out to Sean. He is in here. Miss One is in here. Chiba, Miss R, Nicole. Man, I haven't seen you in so long. So many people are in the building. Real Talk with Retta. Good to see you as well. Everybody's coming in, hitting the like button. The real Patty Pendergrass is in here as well. Good morning, everybody. Well, where do we start? We have a new trial, okay? The last time we were here, we were watching the sentencing of one, Miss Alicia Andrews, okay? Which we know she's gonna appeal that. And then we went through the Julio Fulio trial with the Julio Fulio 4, okay? That trial came with all types of trials and tribulations, okay? We were on a roller coaster, little green ass Sean, like all of Davion talking to himself, acting crazy, Rashad just spaced out, looking like you had so many things with that trial. And we're not done with that one because we do have a sentencing hearing coming up on June 22nd. The good news for y'all is that we have a new trial, okay? And that is what you see on the thumbnail. It's this young man. It's a track meet trial. Now, here's the story if you haven't heard of it. I'm going to bring you up to speed, and this trial does not have cameras in the courtroom, which is like, damn, I'm flying blind here. But we have gotten creative with this in the past. If you've been following this channel for quite some time, then you know we get creative. So that means like whether I check out what the reporters in the courtroom are looking at, the judge in this case, because we're talking about people that were minors and you might still have some minors on the witness stand. I think that is why he is keeping this one very, very close to the vest. Okay? Now let's talk about it. So this case involves a young man named Karmelo Anthony. Not the basketball player. That's what I thought. I said, Melo, what did Melo do? Not that Karmelo Anthony. This is a young man in Texas, in North Texas. A lot of you guys had been DMing me about this, so I needed to get up to speed, go through the court docs, and figure out what was going on. Now, it's a supercharged case. Back in 2025, you have this high school. Plano, I think a little bit North Texas. I was looking in that area when there was an opportunity to move to Dallas, but it is a very good area in North Texas, North Dallas. This young man comes from a family in Louisiana. He was born and raised in Louisiana, and then the family relocated to North Dallas, okay? Karmelo comes from a 2-parent household, all right? So there is a father figure and mom. I don't know if it's his biological father or if mom is married, whatever the case may be. But it seems like a good family from what I've seen and heard so far. So Karmelo was very much into sports, active, was running track, and the young man was doing football as well. On the other hand, you have a young white Caucasian boy who was a twin, comes from a good family as well. He is the person that was murdered in this case, and also comes from a good family. also a football player. Both of these young men, one black, one white, come from good families, but were on the sports trajectory. These boys were really good at playing football and were on the path to college football, both of them, okay? So the situation really does become tragic. It gives me undertones of the case we just finished, Julio Fulio, because you have these young lives in the balance, okay? So here's what happens. There is a game going on. It's raining in North Dallas. And there are two sides. You guys know when you're at a football game, there's bleachers. You have one side and you have the other side. Now, the white kid, they had a tent because it was raining. There was a tent and the team that was playing was sitting under the tent. Karmelo, I believe, was on the rival team, but because it was raining, he was just looking for a place to sit. So he sits under the other team's tent. It is alleged that the white kid, the man that was murdered, got up and says to Karmelo, "Hey, this is my team's tent. You can't sit here, right? You can't sit with us." He's basically saying you can't sit here. And he was like, "You got to move." Now, I don't know what the exact wording is because there's a lot. Oh, it was a track meet. I'm sorry, it was a track meet. I said it was a football game. My bad, guys.
Dang it. I did not mean to do that. Hold on. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Episode
that the white kid, the man that was murdered, got up and says to Karmelo, "Hey, this is my team's tent. You can't sit here, right? You can't sit with us." He's basically saying you can't sit here. And he was like, "You got to move." Now, I don't know what the exact wording is because there's a lot. Oh, it was a track meet. I'm sorry, it was a track meet. I said it was a football game. My bad, guys. It's early. It was a track meet. Now, he's saying, "You're on our side, you need to move." Karmelo says, "Move?" And I don't know what the tone was, if it was aggressive. We're going to look at the documents together because I do see some problems that we're going to have in this case. I have been reviewing some tweets in jury selection. They started jury selection 2 days ago, and I can confirm for you guys it is a complete non-melanated jury, okay? Non-melanated. And we're going to talk about that in a second after we go through the police report to see what the cops reported on, okay? But as of yesterday at 5 p.m., we can confirm that there were the last 3 people, 600 out of 600 people in North Texas, 600. Not a single person on that jury is a person of color, or at least a black person. But this young man, Karmelo, he's a young black male. Remember, we talk about having a jury of your peers, a jury of your peers. So we have issues with jury selection. We're going to talk about that. And that's why, if you guys follow me on IG, I put a post up yesterday saying, is this young man going to get a fair trial? So we're going to talk about all of that. Going back to the story, it is alleged that he was asked to leave. Karmelo said, and that's why I think that it was probably done in a rude way, because he goes, move, and he said, make me. And then Karmelo's going for self-defense because apparently there was some type of lunging. That's what we're going to look at the docs together. Allegedly, there was some type of lunging to make him move. And Karmelo pulls out a knife and stabs him in the chest. And then the white boy dies. Now, this case is very much racially charged. I'm going to prime you with that. It's very much racially charged. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet, and I want to bring it to you guys. Y'all know how we do it over here. We look at the legal documents, and we become a judge for ourselves, okay? We look at the facts and evidence in a case, and we go from there. So, Karmelo was ultimately charged for murder, 17 years old, okay? Whole life ahead of him. It's tough to watch. Now, the family is basically saying that he is not being treated well, right, throughout the process. I mean, I'm thinking about the jury selection alone. It's looking a little. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have at least one black person, one on that
One.
jury,
Yeah.
one,
Not a
not
one.
one? So
That's what I'm looking at. Not a one.
interesting stuff. So I want to look at the police report because it's about 7 pages long, and these are reports from the police officers at the scene. We're going to hear what the lead person, the lead officer mentioned in his report, and then there are other things because I saw a lot when I was skimming through it last night. You also have to remember how evidence is collected, okay? Keep in mind that it was raining, things of the like. As far as evidence in this case, there is one piece of video surveillance footage because when somebody claims self-defense, you really need to be able to show that you were in fear, apprehension, that some type of bodily harm coming to you was imminent. And this is an interesting discussion for us right now, guys, because y'all see all the shit that's going on with Chud the Builder and the self-defense stuff, right? We are in Texas, so the jurisdiction is different. Karmelo is not facing life in prison and is not facing the death penalty, even though Texas is very conservative and has those things on the table. Because the incident took place when he was under the age of 18. He could be looking at, I think somewhere I saw between 2 to 22 years. As we get deeper in the case, I'll get more accurate, y'all. Like, Sunshine called me. She's like, girl, it was a track meet. So, yeah, it was track meet. So, without further delay, let's look at the facts. And today is opening arguments. I have up some Twitter feeds to see how people in CBS are reporting on this. Let me just refresh it to make sure our reporters are in the room so I give you guys accurate information. But yeah, we'll talk about the jury selection and I'll show this to you guys. But basically, jury selection started and today they're doing opening arguments. The plan for us is I'll probably do like evening live streams where we can recap everything that happened throughout the day. But with cases like this, it's going to start with the prosecution showing that this boy is guilty. Yeah. Or at least they're going to attempt to do that. But when you have murder, remember, you have to have the intent, the premeditation, the deliberation, all of that, that Karmelo, and you know, I do like Melo's attorney. Melo is just like, I want you guys to call him Melo because that's what his family knows him as. The other thing is there's a lot of protesters outside of the courthouse. And it's very supercharged. Melo's family has raised an enormous amount of money. I think they have raised $600,000. He is not detained. He has been on house arrest, so they were able to, after the incident, post bond and have him home. But this week is starting to get real for this young man because he could face time in jail or jail, prison. Y'all always correct me on that. You're like, listen, it's different. So that's where we are. Okay, now this is a good point here because people are saying Melo already admitted his guilt. It's a wrap for him. We're going to talk about that because let's look at these police reports and you will see. Shout out to Nurse Janice who renewed her membership. Let us come over here. Y'all know I like to go into the case files and see where we are. So this is this is happening in Collin County. This was filed by indictment. The file date was just about a year ago. So you can also see that this case has moved through the system very quickly. I would say, what was it, filed 6/24/2025, and here we are on 6/4/2026. Okay, so you have all of the information here. The jury trial began on June 1st at 9 a.m. And again, the judge, it looks like he really wanted to, in lead up to trial, on April 16th, right here, it shows that there's an order regulating trial proceedings, media access, security, and courtroom decorum. That is why we are iced out, chat. We're not in there right now. We're not in this courthouse. We could have been, but the judge filed an order in early April saying that. And then on May 18th, he amended that order regulating media access, security, and courtroom decorum. Now, here's the other thing about that. It's so tight where the reporters can't even bring in cell phones, other devices, because apparently on Monday, somebody was attempting to film some things. This case already has problems. It ain't even started yet. But I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on what the back end of this case file looks like. So the charge is murder. It has the details here. First degree felony. It looks like the Frisco Police Department was leading this, and the arrest date was April 2nd of 2025. All right, let's get to the guts of this case. And that really starts with looking at this arrest report. Let me make this nice and big so we can all follow along. All right, this arrest report is intact. It's about 7 pages, and what we're going to do is look at all 7 pages, and there are several officers that played a different role at the scene of the crime, okay? Now, some of them have different roles, meaning they might have secured the situation, meaning that they just kept the public away, meaning that they could have interviewed witnesses, things of the like. Mello did make some statements that implicated himself and could show some guilt, okay? But you guys know me, I'm a law nerd. When it comes to the federal rules of evidence, there are certain exceptions to like hearsay and things of the like, and one of them is an excited utterance. That just keeps sticking out to me as we get super close to the beginning and duration of this trial. I'm very curious. I wish I was in there because y'all know I like to see the objections, the basis of the objections, why they're happening, things of the like. But Mello's attorney, from what I could see, is fighting very hard for certain things, okay? Now, let us start with the arrest report to see who said what and when. So this happened April of last year. There you have him. You know, you have an image of him, but he was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He's small, 130 pounds, 17 years old, 5'9", you know, had a part-time job as a cashier. Now you see the first degree felony, the murder piece here as well. All right, we're gonna start with Officer Cortez, okay? Officer Cortez is probably, I don't wanna call him the lead investigator in this case because I'm not sure if he's a detective, but let us at least see what Officer Cortez mentions in this report. So, looks like on April 2nd at 10:01, Officer Cortez heard over the radio dispatch call about a stabbing at the stadium. Frisco PD call notes indicate that an athlete was stabbed. The suspect was reported as being a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. I immediately left my office, and I do want to say that it says Stanley School Resource Officer. So Officer Cortez must have worked for Frisco PD, but was stationed at the school. A lot of high schools have that going on. He says he left his office and ran across the Stanley Middle School parking lot towards the southwest entrance into the stadium. As I entered the stadium, 2 high school age students informed me that the victim was on the north end of the stadium by the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent. I did not identify those students. All right, so think about that. You know, the officer, he runs over, he hears about a stabbing. 2 students tell him that, they tell him where the victim is, and he did not identify those students. Next, I proceed towards the north end of the stadium, the visitor side, on foot. As I got closer to the north end, I could see the Memorial High tent with multiple individuals under the tent. Once I arrived onto the north side bleachers, an adult male who was on the track pointed out the suspect. This is now your third identifier. I was not able to identify that witness. Y'all see how we have problems? We have hearsay. We have people telling you, things, but 3 witnesses unidentified. The individual was pointed out to me was a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and dark colored Nike pants. The suspect at this point was on the track on the north end. There was a chain link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, "I was protecting myself." All right? That's Melo's first statement. I was protecting myself. It should have been noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons, and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while we were walking along the fence, and I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence when he complied towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said he put his hands on me. So now Melo's got 2 implicating statements. I then detained the suspect in handcuffs, handcuffed behind his back, and had him sit on the ground. Officer Ricci had arrived on the scene at the time, or Ricky. I conducted another pat-down of his person and then searched his person after he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. The suspect then responds and says, quote, "I am not alleged, I did it." Melo. Next, Officer Ricky and I walked the suspect to the patrol vehicle, which was on the northeast gate of the stadium. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said, here's a 4th statement, "He put his hands on me. I told him not to." Melo, it's the 4th statement. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. I searched his person once again. I had him sit in the back area of the driver's side of the patrol vehicle. While the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw blood out loud, so it would be captured on my body-worn camera. It also should be noted that the suspect asked me, is he going to be okay, while he was in the back seat. I then identified the suspect. He provided his name and date of birth verbally as Karmelo Anthony, with a birth date of, it's redacted. Once I ran it, which I ran through FPD dispatch. Officer Hancock arrived on the scene and remained with me and the suspect at this point. Karmelo then checked via eSchool. Karmelo was then checked via eSchool, which is a database to confirm his identity as a student. The identifying information he provided matched the individual I had in custody, Karmelo Anthony. Next, I was advised by Sergeant Holland to transport the subject to Frisco PD jail. Officer Hancock and I transported him to the jail. Again, I did not question Karmelo about the incident. Upon arriving at the Frisco jail, Karmelo was escorted to the intake area. FPD jail staff changed him out of jail attire. I remained with the jail staff the entire time that he was changed over. The clothes that Karmelo was wearing was placed in a paper evidence bag. The clothes remained in my possession from this point on. Upon Karmelo being placed into a jail cell, I continued to keep possession of his clothes. I returned to my patrol car with Officer Hancock, which was in the FPD Sally Port. Is this not giving you guys Karen Reed vibes? It was in the FPD Sally Port and placed Karmelo's clothes in the back trunk area. I drove the patrol vehicle out of the Sally Port and parked the squad car in the patrol area. Karmelo's clothes remained in that trunk area of the vehicle. FPD crime scene technician then took possession of the clothes. I added my body-worn camera to the case. I have no further information to report. So let's stop for a minute and I'm gonna come to y'all in the chat. Okay? Number one, you have 4 or 5 statements that Karmelo made. The one where he asked if he was okay, I don't really think that one is implicating. But the other ones where he's just like, ain't no alleged, I did it. Boy.
Tubi, free movies and live TV. Try it now.
Find great deals on your favorite break room essentials at Staples.
Right? I was protecting myself. He went to self-defense immediately. And there's more of that in here from the other officers. But let's talk about this because, you know, I know a lot of you guys were like, oh, Karen revives. I'm saying that because I've seen the rest of it. But remember, it was also raining, and evidence collection is always important when it comes to criminal defense. Evidence handling is always important when it comes to criminal defense. Y'all saw Rashad's attorney try to do Gonzalez. You saw that. You saw how they try to poke and prod when it comes to evidence because that's really all you have. Right? Is looking at police conduct and police procedure when it comes to criminal defense. It's a huge part of criminal procedure. Right? Now, we have those statements. If you think those statements hurt Melo, put a 1 in the chat. Y'all know we love these social polls. If you think these statements don't hurt Melo, put a 2 in the chat. If you think the jury's going to consider it in a different way, I'm very curious. I was looking at this yesterday. I was like, I can't wait to see what my chat thinks. So far, I got some 1s. The Tegan, we have a 1. Breezy F Baby, we have a 1. Gigi says 1. Rhonda says 2. Okay, we've got some 2. We've got some 2s. Massage playing, it says here's a 3. Okay, we're not going to take this one. We got a 2. Miss G says 2. Does it hurt or help him? But at the same time, is it an admission of a crime? So let's come back. Let's look at them again so you guys we can analyze them together. What did he say? What was the first one? The first quote that came from Melo was, I was protecting myself. That's the first thing. Okay? That's the first quote. The second quote was, he put his hands on me. So he's telling the officer what happened. The third quote was, he put his hands on me, I told him not to. That's the third quote. Here's the fourth one. I'm not alleged. I did it. Boy, that one worries me. I'm not gonna lie. That one is the one that worries me. I'm not alleged. I did it. Now, does a jury look at that as admission of guilt? Does a jury look at that like he's being honest about what happened? But here's the thing. Without camera evidence, like we just came from the Julio Fulio trial where there's cameras up the wazoo. Okay? Cameras all up in the wazoo. Whereas with this case, there's only one piece of footage that you could barely see what happened. So a lot of this is word of mouth and witness statements and who said what. So, interesting. But I'm seeing a lot of 2s and you know a bit of 2s, but I see some 1s in here as well.
It takes 90
you know, for him to actually say that out loud, and that's the first thing we see in this police report. Now we're on page 2 of 7. We have a few other officers to get through. Let's see what else they have in here. Now I know, like, whenever we have a new trial, like, of course, we get some new people in here and they don't know how we live stream, things like that. Typically, we watch the trial live and I will wait and commentate. But because we are closed out, iced out with no cameras in the courtroom, I'm bringing you guys up to speed. I don't tolerate bullshit in my chat. The mods don't hire bullshit in the chat. Let me just go ahead and at it. so that way we can get back to regular scheduled programming and go. So that is the first officer. Now let's come to Officer Ricky or Richie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but let's go to the second. All right, here's what she says. She says at about 10:01, I was wearing a full Frisco police uniform and I was operating a fully marked Frisco police vehicle. At about that time, I was dispatched to the report of a stabbing at the stadium. Frisco PD advised an athlete had been stabbed. The suspect was described as a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and blue pants. I responded code 3 from the area of El Dorado Parkway and Frisco Street. I arrived on the scene at approximately 10:05, so that took her 4 minutes to get there. When I arrived on scene, I approached the track field area and saw Officer Cortez kneeling next to a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and blue pants. The male, later identified as Karmelo Anthony, was in handcuffs and was seated on the sidewalk by the entrance to the track. As I approached Officer Cortez, Cortez stated Anthony was the alleged suspect. Anthony then made a spontaneous statement and stated, so now this is a second officer that heard it, I'm not alleged, I did it. Now, the reason why I said this gives me Karen Reed vibes is in her case, remember when they found John O'Keefe and it was in the middle, it was snowing and everybody, like you saw some like body cam footage, things of the like, and maybe we start to see that evidence in this trial because you got one piece of surveillance, but you also have body cam. The last officer said that he captured some of this on body cam. So we might be able to see that evidence to see, okay, what was said, how was it said, what was the reaction when you got there, but it doesn't show us the altercation itself. That's what we're missing. Now, in Karen Reed's case, they tried to say that Karen Reed said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, that she hit John O'Keefe with her car and left him to die in the snow. That's what the first responders said. Similarly, here you have this second officer now saying that Mello.
Hey, can I get 4 guavas? The big ones. Thanks. New no synergy cream free guava.
You have this second officer now saying that Mello made this statement that it ain't alleged that he did it. I am not alleged, I did it. Okay? So that's why when I say it gives me Karen Reed vibes, it reminded me of that, and then also with his close with evidence collection. We'll talk about that. Officer Cortez conducted a pat search of Anthony's person to ensure Anthony did not have any weapons and found nothing of evidentiary value. Officer Cortez and I then walked Anthony to my pre-search patrol vehicle, and Anthony was seated in the rear driver's side compartment of my patrol vehicle. While walking to my patrol vehicle, Anthony made another spontaneous statement and asked if what happened could be considered self-defense. Notice, there is not a quote with that one. All right, so Officer Ricky, whatever, is saying, hey, he made a spontaneous statement. Why is that important to distinguish? When you distinguish that it was spontaneous, that means you were not asked a question. Nobody was talking to you, per se. But you decided by your own volition to say that out loud. So, with Mello's got some statements that he's made. From the last officer, we saw 4 or 5 of them. And from this one, we're seeing that here too. Right? She heard the I'm not alleged, I did it. When you walked him to the car, he's like asking about self-defense, if it could be considered self-defense. Right? So, anywho. All right. He did not have any weapons, nothing of evidentiary value. Officer Cortez and I then walked him to my pre-search patrol vehicle, and Anthony was seated in the right driver's side compartment of the vehicle. While walking to the car, he made the statement and asked if what happened could be considered self-defense. I replied by telling Anthony I did not know what happened. It should be noted in the in-car camera in my patrol vehicle was activated prior to Anthony being placed in the patrol vehicle. So they likely have that statement on camera. While Officer Cortez assisted Anthony into my patrol vehicle, I noticed that he had blood on his left middle finger. I grabbed my department-issued digital camera and took a photograph of his hands. I later uploaded the photograph to the crime scene folder under this case number. So it looks like there's 2 pieces of evidence so far coming through her. Officer Cortez remained with my patrol vehicle and Anthony while I provided assistance with the scene security. Nothing further from this officer. So I can anticipate that when this officer takes the stand, she's gonna, corroborate this side of the story. The statement, "I'm not alleged, I did it," is gonna come through. We're gonna probably get some of her body cam footage, and we are likely gonna get footage from the car when he's asking if it was, could be considered self-defense, right? So we're going to get 2 or 3 pieces of evidence through this particular officer. And remember, she corroborates that big problem statement, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Remember, this is also a 17-year-old kid. Is he going to know to not talk when he's in the back of a cruiser? Is he going to know? Is he going to ask to speak to his parents and get his parents on scene before everything happens? He should know. But at the same time, there's a lot of adrenaline when it comes to these situations. And at that point, it sounds like Melo didn't know if the young man survived or not. Turns out he didn't. That stabbing was pretty fatal. Okay? I believe he died at the scene. That is Officer 2. Let us go to Officer 3, which is Officer Otis. Okay, here's what Officer Otis has to say. This one's a little bit longer, but interesting. All right, this is our 3rd officer. He's on April 2nd at around 10:01. FPD was dispatched to the stadium, okay, in reference to a stabbing victim call. Frisco Police Department Emergency Communications was receiving an emergency call regarding an athlete that was stabbed. The original unknown assailant was a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants, and also had a goatee and short hair. The subject was possibly wearing a Centennial High attire as well, as it was believed he was a student there for a sporting event. This had all taken place on the visitor side of the stadium, the north side, and the victim was under the Memorial High School tent in the bleachers. At around the same time, School Resource Officer Cortez arrived on scene and began assisting the victim, trainers, and other parties. Officer Cortez also advised on the radio that he also had the suspect. Sergeant Otis was working the 50 sector as the sergeant. He was in full Frisco Police Department uniform with distinct patches and badge and a police duty belt. He was also in a marked FPD car. He was relatively close to the call and placed himself on it around 10:02 and responded to the call with his patrol vehicle's overhead emergency lights and sirens activated. He arrived to the call at 10:06. Sergeant Otis arrived to the stadium and began walking to the location. At or around this time, Officer Cortez and Officer Ritchie were walking the black male subject, the suspect, away from the stadium. The suspect was crying hysterically. It would have been great for the other officers to tell us that. But now Officer 3 is mentioning that the suspect is crying hysterically. Please see the other officers' narratives for their involvement. Oh, we have, and they left that part out. Sergeant Otis walked up to the visitor bleachers and observed the victim being treated by the fire department and also the athletic trainers. The weather began to turn and it began to heavily downpour in rain. At this time, some of the FISD staff moved the memorial tent to cover the victim and the FFD personnel. Sergeant Otis began using his city-issued phone to snap crime scene photos to preserve as much of the scene as possible due to the weather and large gathering of people that were involved in the incident. Other officers began to set up crime scene tape moving non-essential personnel out of the immediate area. The officers on scene were informed that the knife
Oh,
that
what
was
up,
used was
Derek?
tossed and was still believed to be somewhere close. Eventually, one of the witnesses says they remember seeing it on the bleachers still. Officer Shalls was able to locate the knife, so the weapon was found. It was located between rows 9 and 10 near seat 30, closest to the aisle, partially open. The rain began to come down heavily, and it was determined that instead of moving the knife, the officers would cover it with a large blue tarp.
To all y'all people saying that he quote unquote stabbed the guy, took the knife and ran, this here just proves that that soon as he stabbed the guy, he left the knife. He left and left the knife in the guy. So that there has been debunked.
So, do you guys see why I'm leaning towards Karen Reed vibes? Because you have inclement weather. But what did they also tell you? That trainers were also assisting the victim. So I think you might have some tainted evidence here.
Right.
But at the same time, if rain is washing things away, and if you need to get prints or whatever, or other forensics off of this evidence, the evidence has other factors that contribute to it. So I also anticipate that once we get to forensics, that we might have some issues with pulling DNA and all of that. Because remember, all of this is going to be witness statements, self-defense, but you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that self-defense was either justified or whatever the case may be. That's why this one is very hard to not have eyes and ears in the courtroom. All right, but let's see, because I was looking at this and it was pretty fascinating that there's some issues with evidence collection. Nothing terrible, but it looks like they tried to preserve it. And the other thing that they tell us is that they use a city-issued phone to snap crime scene photos. So that means that you don't have the traditional CSI type of photos that are high level, high grade using the big cameras. We have evidence that was collected from a city-issued iPhone. Okay, so the knife was located. The rain began to come down heavily, and they covered the knife with a blue tarp. Sergeant Otis assisted in preserving the immediate crime scene as much as possible, while the other personnel tended to the victim and eventually transported him. At around this time, Officer Wetzel had the crime scene log and began logging the individuals on the call to the best of his abilities. That is interesting. Lieutenant Crawford and Pemberton relieved Sergeant Otis from the scene. Sergeant Otis went back to the police department to download his body cam, so we'll also have the vantage point from him, and the photos he took with his city-issued phone. Sergeant Otis's city-issued phone had a total of 33 photos that were used to document the incident scene. During the download, the initial photos formatting was incompatible with the crime scene folder. See what I mean? See what I mean? All right, so there's an issue with the photos that were documented at the scene. But the formatting was incompatible with the crime scene folder once he went back to the police station to download them. He re-downloaded the photos that he took, and they were able to be saved properly for preservation of evidence. Okay, so it sounds like the initial pass was not successful, but the second one was. I'm pretty sure the defense team is going to say something about this.
I would.
And then that wraps up this officer. It says that at this time, there's nothing further to add to this report. So this is Officer Otis, and he is telling you that he has 33 photos. He has his body cam stuff as well. He also did describe the weather conditions and also described that the defendant was crying, or actually we call him the defendant. The defendant was crying hysterically, okay? So anticipate on the defense side that excited utterance, some of those things I talked about at the beginning are likely going to come up. right? But like I said, this is very, very supercharged, and I see it in the chat already. I see a lot of new names here. Like, it always happens. But what
Yeah.
we do here is we really look at the facts and evidence of a case. And it's tough because we're not inside of the courtroom to react to witnesses on the stand, to hear these officers on the stand. And then when it comes to the defense side, whether or not we're going to go from that point. Before we continue, the other big thing is it is anticipated that Melo will not take the stand. That there was some discussion around that yesterday on whether or not the jury can be fully impartial if the defendant chooses to exercise his right, and he does not have to take the witness stand and give his account of the story. And it sounds like they're leaning towards the fact that they are not about to do it.
Nah.
Okay. Let us keep going, and we're going to go to the next officer, and that was, I think, the third. So we went to Officer Otis, we did Officer Ritchie, so we did hers, and then the main responding officer, which is Officer Cortez. So that is the third. Let's come to number 4, which is Officer Wetzel. So Officer Wetzel responded at 10:02. He says that he responded to the report of the stabbing at the stadium located at 7th Street. The original call note stated an athlete had been stabbed in the chest and that the suspect that stabbed the victim goes to Centennial High School. That's also interesting. Athletic trainers were on site and were providing care to the victim and advised he was not conscious and not breathing. The notes also indicated that the suspect was a black male with a goatee and short hair wearing Centennial gear. I arrived on scene at approximately 10:06. When I arrived on scene, I grabbed a roll of crime scene tape from my trunk and proceeded to the visitors' bleachers, where dispatch advised the victim was. While I was walking towards the visitor bleachers, I was approached by a witness who identified himself as, all right, so now we have a witness statement. His name is redacted, but he does begin telling the officer what happened. The officer asked him where the stabbing occurred. The witness advised it happened under the Memorial High School pop-up tent in the visitors' bleachers. I immediately informed Sergeant Otis where the witness stated the stabbing occurred and gave him crime scene tape to start securing the scene. I then had Blank move to the walkway under the visitors' bleachers out of the rain to further speak with me. The following is a summary of my contact with this witness and advised he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with his team and was near the victim, Austin, and the suspect, who was later identified as Karmelo Anthony. All right, so this is a witness statement, and it seems like it could be another student and athlete. Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, touch me and see what happens. No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what Blank recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everybody to get help. Blank advised he did not know Anthony's name, but stated another Memorial Track member was friends with Anthony and he could identify Anthony, describing Anthony as the black male, skinny with possibly a goatee, short puffy hair, and wearing Centennial High School clothing. This concluded my contact with this witness. I then was instructed to start a crime scene log. I retrieved my crime scene log from my patrol vehicle and then began starting the crime scene log. I was later relieved by Officer Schultz, who took over the crime scene log and cleared the scene. Nothing further attached to the original report. So this fourth officer actually spoke to a witness who was sitting on the memorial side and explained what happened. Now, looks like there were a couple statements here, right? So Austin tells Mello to move. And Mello says, touch me and see what happens. Austin did touch him. Then Mello says, punch me and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. So you now have you have someone basically saying, please move. The other one gives gives him a warning, like touch me and see what happens. Subject one does indeed touch that person. That person gives him another warning, and then the touching occurs again. Now at this point, I mean, of course we want these boys to get some help. I mean, it didn't have to escalate, and in all of these families have, you know, like they're losing these kids, you know, like Austin unfortunately has passed away, and Mello is looking at a very long, you know, stint in jail. If found guilty, you know, there could be an exoneration that's on the table too, but again, it really is up to the jury and what they think and what evidence is presented. Because a lot of this evidence, at least from what we're gathering from this police department, is going to be body cam, okay? Body cam and witness statements. Only one video exists of the actual incident, but it's very hard to see what happens and when. Maybe there's other evidence that's introduced later, but what we can see here is this officer really talking to this witness who gives their account of what happened. Now, are there other witnesses involved as well? Yes, that we'll hear from. But this is just the police report, okay? Now, remember, you're going to hear from first responders. In cases like this, you'll have probably the first day, you'll get all the police officers in one day that responded to the scene. Then you're going to get EMS people, so EMTs, firefighters, first responders, and they kind of give you their standpoint from a medical standpoint, okay? We're also probably going to get a day of on-site witnesses. So if today is Thursday, it almost always starts with police officers and firefighters, first responders. Tomorrow, maybe you get witnesses that are really focused on you know, some of the students that were there. And that's why the judge has turned the cameras off in the courtroom, because some of these kids want their privacy. You know, you guys see what happened with Colin and some of the other teenagers that were involved in the Karen Reed case. But to preserve these children's identities, or if some of them are still underage, they are not going to be televising the case, okay? Now, let's keep going. That is officer number 4. So we learn a little bit about evidence collection with the last one. We learn about the 2 officers that heard the statements from Mello, and from this one, we saw him talk to a witness. All right, next officer, relatively short, Officer Hancock. He responded same day. He was working SRO at Independence High School, Collin County. A weapons call was dispatched over the air that detailed a stabbing at the stadium. After hearing more dispatch call information, I drove to the scene. While en route, I heard Officer Cortez say he has the suspect in custody. When I got on the scene, I looked for Officer Cortez and went straight to him to hold security with the suspect that he cuffed and secured the police squad. Multiple witnesses were providing statements to officers where the stabbing occurred at the memorial track tent. Only a short time later, Officer Cortez and myself escorted Karmelo Anthony to the Frisco Adult Holding Facility. Anthony was transitioned off to the jail staff without incident. All jail paperwork was completed, and CID took the information from there. So this witness is going to be quick, but he was with Officer Cortez and escorted Mello to the jail after he was arrested. All right, so that one, we didn't get much there. All right, this next one, Officer Fisher, is pretty interesting as well. Let's see what he has. So at 10:05, he gets there a little bit later. Officer Fisher was dispatched in regards to the stabbing. The notes stated an athlete had been stabbed in the chest, was unconscious and not breathing. When he arrived, the crime scene was already marked off and the suspect was in custody. I began asking people if they were witnesses to anything. I made contact. All right, so we got our second witness Looks like his name was shared. Hunter. Hunter was trying to keep his name private, but Hunter. I made contact with Hunter, and then they were both breathing heavily and crying due to the nature of events. Okay, so it looks like Hunter and someone else. So this officer's talking to two of these kids. They were coaches. They were with the coaches on the field, and it was pouring down rain. We made the decision to relocate to a locker room just to the east to get out of the rain. Once in there, things calmed down a bit. However, they were still hysterical and could not really talk. In there, I learned Hunter was the brother of the victim. Oh, this is Austin's brother. I attempted to ask them both what happened. I could not really get anything out of Hunter, but he stated he wanted to speak. I asked him what happened, and he stated that they were all sitting in the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent when another male he did not know walked over and sat under the tent. The other person then said Austin, the victim, told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. Okay, the plot thickens. The other person had said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. This was all blank remembered when he talked to me. After this, I then stood with the 3 athlete witnesses until CID arrived and interviewed them. I was then relieved by SRO and went back to patrol, nothing further. Now, Hunter, Austin's brother, his twin brother, I believe Austin died in his arms. Pretty sad. But we get some new information in this segment of the report where now we see that Austin actually pushed Mello, okay? We don't see that in the other narratives above. And then that first witness did not mention
that's what
that
happened.
either. The first witness really talked about some of the statements that were made. Punch me and see what happens. Touch me and see what happens. But that person did not mention that there was physical touching and a pushing that happened, okay? We talked about that warning, right? But like now we know what the physical contact in particular was, okay? Let's keep going down here. We now come to Officer Crawford, who says that at 10 o'clock, he was probably there first, was dispatched to the stadium in reference to the stabbing call. I arrived on scene and observed medical personnel and several bystanders standing next to a subject later identified as the victim, Austin.
Dang, I can't see.
The medical personnel were actively engaged in life-saving measures with someone else. I observed that a crime scene was created around the area and began collecting the names and contact information of the bystanders within the scene. I then met with Officer Wetzel and directed him to begin a crime scene log. As he was just getting the needed paperwork, I took over his responsibility of monitoring a witness to the event. Ultimately, the witness was taken to another area out of the rain, and Officer Schaus took over the crime scene log, and I forwarded information about the bystanders to him. From that point forward, I worked with the coordinating response from SRO, CID, CSI, and POI. I took no other action at the scene. My body-worn camera did not activate when I initially arrived on scene, but I did activate it when I discovered it wasn't recording while waiting with the witness, nothing further. So here's another potential issue. Officer Crawford's body cam was not activated initially. My body-worn camera did not activate when I initially arrived on scene, but I did activate it when I discovered it wasn't recording while waiting with the witness. Okay, yeah. So Officer Crawford got there relatively early at 10 a.m. Remember, a lot of them started arriving at 10:04, 10:06. Now, we would have seen on his body-worn camera medical personnel trying to, take life-saving measures with with Austin, okay? However, what you're seeing with Officer Crawford's situation here is because his body camera wasn't on. He was talking to one of the witnesses, but now that footage wasn't really active. It's not complete. So you could have a best evidence issue with this one. Now that I'm reading it. Could, possible. But remember, we're not in the courtroom, so we can't see. That was interesting. Let me see how y'all are doing in chat. 800 of you guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. Hit the like button. But yes, I'm going to continue going through this report. If you're just popping in, we are talking about this pretty tragic track meet stabbing that took place. You have two 17-year-old young boys. One is a victim in the case. He's dead. He passed on. And then you also have the young man that stabbed him on trial for murder. Okay? Now, we're just reading the narrative for people that are new to the case, for you to get familiar with it. Jury selection has concluded. They are in the middle of opening statements right now. I'm going to see if I get anything from the reporters to see how that's going.
If another small business owner or chef approached me about opening a new space.
Anything from the reporters to see how that's going.
I'm good because I'm black, or I'm good.
Oh.
Good or evil is your mark.
If I get anything from the reporters to see how that's going. Yes, we have some information. I'll read that to you guys in a minute. Yep, we've got a few updates for you guys on opening statements. It looks like it started about 17 minutes ago. 18 jurors, 10 women, 8 men. It's a mix of ethnicities, white, Middle Eastern, South Asian. No black jurors, as we reported yesterday over the objection of the defense. All right, we're going to come to the prosecution's opening statement. I have an update for you guys. It was about 5 minutes ago. Okay, let's keep going. All right, Officer Schultz. Okay, Officer Schultz was working as a SRO as a Student Opportunity Center. At approximately 10:01, I was dispatched to a stabbing that occurred at the stadium. It should be noted that my location is approximately 200 yards from the stadium, so he was the closest. Upon my arrival, I tried to get an updated location of the suspect. I could not see Officer Cortez when I arrived. Officer Cortez informed over radio that he had the suspect in custody. At this time, I turned my attention to the victim. Multiple trainers were already performing CPR. I could see blood on and around the victim. At this time, medics arrived and began life-saving measures. I coordinated with other officers on the scene to secure the location. By this time, the students and the FISD staff had cleared the area. I used crime scene tape to begin to tape off the area. It began to rain harder at this time. Sergeant Otis and myself moved a high school tent over the medics and the victim to attempt to preserve the evidence that we could. A memorial coach approached me and informed me that he was with a student who claimed to see the entire altercation. I told the coach to stick with the student and that we would need to get him to the police station to give a statement. The student quickly informed me that he knew where the suspect threw the knife and pointed me to its location. I located the knife with Sergeant Otis and could see blood on the knife. I quickly used my city-issued phone to take photos before the rain could wash it away. So now we have 2 officers that use their city-issued phones to take photos. Sergeant Otis located a blue tarp, and we decided we should cover the knife without touching it in an attempt to preserve any evidence. It was windy and raining hard. Once we positioned the tarp over the knife, I reached down and grabbed a backpack left in the stands to weigh the tarp down, then threw it up by where Sergeant Otis was positioning the tarp. It was later discovered that the backpack I threw up onto the tarp was the suspect's backpack.
Well,
it was the only Centennial High School backpack located within all the Memorial High School backpacks in the area of the stand. Why didn't Officer Schultz, because there could be evidence in that backpack, why didn't you separate it? Why did
Yeah.
you use it as a
Why?
paperweight or for the fucking tarp where the knife was? I'm sorry, guys, if you're new here, sometimes I swear when I get frustrated. I didn't read this part last night, but okay, I don't know. Boop. Okay, anyway, let's keep going. It was a suspect's backpack. It was the only Centennial High School backpack located within all of the Memorial High School backpacks in the area of the stand. After securing the scene with the crime scene tape and attempting to preserve as much evidence as possible, I assisted other officers with locating other possible witnesses. Officer Wetzel was maintaining crime scene security while I was assisting the other officers. After the medics transported the victim, I relieved him of that post so he can go back to patrol. I maintained scene security until the call was cleared. Photos will be uploaded to the crime scene folder and my body cam will be downloaded at the end of the shift. No further information at this time. So, you know, that's going to come up on cross-examination with the defense.
Very
It's
much.
like, okay, like if you learned that it was a suspect's backpack, why wasn't it secured? But it continued to cover the knife as a paperweight or whatever. Okay, let's go to the next one, and we are getting close to the end of the report here. Officer Penn Burton responded to the scene as well. He reported to the stabbing. This location is a school stadium. Call notes advised a male had been stabbed and was unconscious. Upon arrival, several officers and medical personnel were attending to the victim who was lying on the ground of the stadium bleachers. I coordinated the Frisco PD response and trying to establish a crime scene. The knife reported to have been used in the assault was located by another officer in the bleachers. Shortly after my arrival, a large downpour of rain began. I directed several officers to use a tarp found at the scene to cover the location of the knife. I remained on scene until the victim was transported and the crime scene was established. Okay, so that one is pretty cut and dry there. Next up, Officer Newton. Officer Newton responded to Texas Health Plano to assist with the case. I was asked with meeting the ambulance at the hospital. I arrived prior to the ambulance and waited for them to arrive. They arrived at 10:46 with the victim, Austin, who was brought into the trauma bay for treatment. Wow, so everybody responded at 10:06. And Austin didn't arrive to the hospital until 10:46. At 10:53, Dr. Chow pronounced Austin deceased. Once he was pronounced, staff stopped treatment and disconnected cords and tubes from the machines without removing anything from the body itself. Okay, so he arrived at 10:46, was pronounced deceased 7 minutes later. While on scene, I took possession of clothing worn by Austin and maintained possession of items until CSI Diller took them from me. While on the scene, Officer Landon requested assistance in lifting the sheets off the body to take photos. I then placed the sheets back when complete. I then stood by in the room security while Officer Landon, Officer Hernandez, and CSI Diller took additional photos. At one point, they rolled the body and removed shorts from Austin, which were bagged and stayed in my custody until CSI took them. At 13:24, family was allowed into the scene to view the body. I was informed by staff and officers that they would be allowed to touch the head and feet of Austin, which they did. At 13:37, nurses from the hospital bagged Austin in a body bag. At 15:15, the transport service or the medical examiner arrived and took possession of the body. He was tagged and placed and secured. I took notes during this time, which were scans to the report and booked as evidence. I turned to the report. At the conclusion of the call, I took my camera off of covert mode and went to turn it off. At that point, I learned the camera had failed to activate. Due to it being in covert mode, I did not see the indicator lights on top of the camera.
Really?
All right, Officer Newton. had a pretty big role because he actually traveled with the victim's body to the hospital. So he had some important information that could have been on the body cam footage. And now we have a second officer whose body camera did not activate. Okay. Let's keep going. Officer Higgins was on the scene as well. See, it gives me Karen Reed vibes. Officer Higgins was working the desk at the Stonebrook Parkway. At approximately 10:42, walked into the main lobby stating that he had a witness. Okay, so this Officer Higgins is at the police station. At 10:42, somebody walked into the lobby saying that they had witnessed the stabbing and was told to come to the lobby to complete a witness statement. I gave Blank a voluntary witness statement, which he worked on until detectives arrived to speak with him. Blank left with detectives and I returned to my normal duties, nothing further at this time. All right, so this is the desk officer where somebody walked in to give their statement. Okay. Next officer, Officer Craig. At approximately 10:01, I was at Heritage High School and heard via radio that a student had been stabbed at the stadium. I immediately responded to the scene. Upon arrival, I first made contact with Officer Cortez, who was standing next to a marked police vehicle. Officer Cortez advised that he detained the suspect and he was in the patrol vehicle. I then responded to the victim's scene that was in the north bleachers. As I walked up, I noticed Frisco Fire Department personnel was attempting to provide life-saving measures to the subject, later identified as Memorial High School student Austin. As other officers worked the scene, I was asked to respond to the stadium's medical locker room area and keep the following students separated until detectives could speak with them. Looks like there's 3. While with them, I was told to take their cell phones from them, later turned them over to this sergeant. After being relieved, I was asked to make contact with all FISD athletes that had been placed on school buses. Below is a list of students who identified themselves as witnesses to the stabbing of Austin. All right, so you have one bus, we have 2 witnesses. The second bus, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 kids from that bus. The third bus has 1 witness. Where do we have 13? Next bus has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 more, 19. 19 plus 3 more, 22. 22 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 27. And then lastly, you have 28. So 28 witnesses that saw what happened. I also met with the following coaches. Those are all students, so 28 students. You see why now I understand why there's no cameras in the courtroom. We have 28 kids, so the judge is like, absolutely not. We're not going to have them on the stand and have everybody watch this across the world. So now we know that there's 20, 28, 29 students. Now we also have 1, 2, 3, 4 coaches. So you have the Centennial head coach, which is, where Melo went to school. His coach says he heard the suspect confess to stabbing the victim. You have the Heritage coach, Vincent, who heard the suspect confess to stabbing the victim. You have Independence High School, there's 2 coaches there, Lakeisha and Mindy. They witnessed the incident. This is a lot of witnesses here. So this police officer, no mistakes in that one, but he probably did. Officer Craig is going to be an important witness because if he spoke to all of these people, he's probably one of the core witnesses in this case, this trial. Interesting. We'll see how that shakes out. Next, you have this next police officer. I cannot pronounce this. Avalis. I, Sergeant Avalis, responded to a stabbing call. Upon arrival, I provided scene security and assisted with keeping civilians away from the crime scene. I maintained this position until I was relieved by the detectives and cleared the scene. Nothing further. All right, so he just did security. Same, I think, with Officer Miller here. Officer Miller was dispatched to the stabbing call. Call note stated that one student was stabbed in the chest by another student. Upon my arrival, my only duty was to provide scene security. As the Frisco medic was leaving the location, I assisted in moving people out of the way for the medic to be able to drive through. Shortly after, I cleared the scene. Nothing further. Ooh-wee. What do you guys think? This is a heavy one. I mean, you know, you've got some young men here. Some missteps from the police department. Some, you know, I think we spotted about 3 or 4 in evidence collection and things of the like. But supercharged case. It is, you know, a lot of people are saying that it has a lot of racial undertones, especially as we are learning the makeup of the jury. If you're just now joining us, I am going to kind of struggle through this over the next few weeks because there's no cameras in the courtroom, but there are some pretty reliable sources and pretty strong reporters in the courtroom that are allowed to take notes only, okay? They physically have to transcribe them. As about an hour ago, JD Miles is who I am following on Twitter, so if you guys want to follow along with him, that's where I'm getting my updates from. It looks like he's with CBS News locally and grew up in the area. Opening statements are about to begin in the Karmelo Anthony trial. Follow this link for live.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this here. If there's more that I need to tell you guys, I'll just come back later on. Thank y'all for showing up. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see y'all later. Peace.